Are we live?
Mm-hmm.
StreamYard gets worse and worse with letting the. Oh, hey, now we're live. How about that? Hi, I'm Brent Leary, and I'm alive apparently.
And hey, I'm Paul Greenberg, and me too.
And I know you guys might be a little freaked out because it's not Thursday at 3, but we are the CRM players still.
Yeah, and I guarantee nobody's really freaked out. I am
Well,
pretty much of the mind that they couldn't care less, right? But yeah, what they do care about is what we're going to do today.
Absolutely, because this is day 2 of our What is CRM in 2024. Guess what? Yesterday was day 1, and now it's day 2.
Wow, the math is amazing. Was that algorithmically determined?
I don't know. I can't even spell that. But I can say this. I wore my dress whites RAM gear today. You know, the end the year, or not the year, end the week on a good note. And look who it is. Sarita Kincaid.
Speaking of which, Sarita, so those of you know, I actually got notification yesterday, which, you know, one way or the other doesn't really matter a lot to me personally, but I want to tell you something that does matter. I got notification I came in as second runner-up, basically, as analyst of the year for the IIAR, and I literally, that's how I found out I had anything to do with the competition whatsoever. I had no notification prior, but what was really important, and earlier this year, and I want to shout out to Sarita, is she won IIAR AR Person of the Year, or about 6 months ago when they announced it. And I didn't deserve anything. She deserved that. She is just awesome. So I just wanted that shout out.
When you said that, Clint Oram put his hands up in victory. You know,
of course.
Know what's going on.
That's SugarCRM's AR lead.
All right. So, folks, yes. So, day 2, we had a group of executives. Well, day 1, we had a group of executives come on and kind of give us an idea of what they're thinking about CRM in 2024. We're getting ready to do that with another group of folks. We're going to have another hour-ish kind of discussion with 5 different executives at different companies. And then we're going to follow that up with, we do the post-game analysis thing. So just to give you a taste of what went on yesterday when we kicked off the conversation with those execs about what CRM in 2024 they thought it was going to be. Here's just a little taste of that, and then we can roll right into what we're going to talk about today.
Well,
we've never been in a space where the future is more wide open to leverage AI and to leverage our institutional knowledge to serve our customers better. So I would say it is dynamic, and it is an opportunity to kind of examine exactly what you want to do with your customers to leverage the technology that is at your disposal.
I've said this a couple of times. I think CRM has jumped the shark. It's time for something very new. And with the advent of generative AI, pre-trained models, the ability now to have mastery of your first-party data in ways that you couldn't before, ability to activate that, I think it's going to be something completely new and different, hopefully something much more unified across departments.
Well, I'm a little bit at a disadvantage because I prepared for what's CRM in 2004. 2024, we think that businesses will differentiate themselves by how well they can use AI to solve some of those problems. But to do that is going to require leaders to really guide their people and organizations to do things like ready, adopt, and measure the impact of AI. And this means things like creating the right culture, skills, incentives, change management. It means adopting the tools and the processes that are actually going to have the biggest impact, but the ability to measure that impact.
There's been so much work in predictive over the last 20 years, especially the last 10 years in CRM for predictive, and it does bring more efficiencies. What's going to change is the way that people interact with those systems so that you're not doing kind of the forms-based computing that was copying paper-based systems from the 1870s. You needed something new. I think it will happen in 2024 to a large degree, but that entropy is going to stop it from really being accepted for a couple more years.
Getting a conversational experience that was at, customer expectation turned out to be really hard. And it turns out Gen AI is a cheat code. When you throw a few trillion data points at it, then it gets really good. And so what we're all doing is hooking it to these systems that we've built for a while and making them much more accessible.
All it took was 1 trillion data points. I mean, that's not bad. So, I mean, that's a lot of, I mean, that was just a snapshot, but I think it was a good snapshot. And I thought it would be an interesting way to lead into today as we bring on our guests. Do I have a slide that shows?
I think you did. I know you had showed it yesterday. There it is.
So brief introductions, the venerable Paul Greenberg.
All right. So I'm just going to name companies. I will tell you this about everybody here. Everyone here is not only fully qualified to talk about CRM and are in most of the cases, long-term industry veterans in the CRM space, but they're also visionary thinkers in the CRM space. So you have an amazing group of people. You have Jason Miller from Creatio, Tara Dezao from Pegasystems, Clint Oram, aka Sugar Clint from SugarCRM, Vijay Sundaram from Zoho, and Shampa Bagchi from ConvergeHub. Every one of these has had is a thought leader in the space and coming from a vendor with a unique perspective. So without that way, not going to do individual introductions, but that should do it.
And bring them on. Jason, Sugar Clint, Shampa, Tara, Vijay. Thanks for joining us. This is great.
Glad to be here.
Right on. Thanks for having us.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you. All right. So, Brent, you want to get down to it?
Yeah, let's get right down to it. So we played a little clips of kind of what took place, and that all stemmed from the beginning, basically asking each of those folks to just share with us. If somebody walked up to you on the street, although why would anybody just walk up to you on the street and ask you this? But if somebody were to ask you, what is CRM in 2024? We would love for you each to take like, a minute or so right off the top to answer that. So since Jason was the first one in, and he's got that really nice brick wall behind him. So Jason, what is 2024? What is CRM in 2024 to you?
Well, first of all, appreciate the time and being here today. And what I think is interesting, if we look back at both what the moderators and the panelists and the analysts yesterday said, they both took very different views. And I'm going to lean a little bit more towards what the analysts said yesterday, which was for a large part, 2024, the technology and CRM, how it functions, will not change. I think what's going to change significantly is the behavior of the people that use CRM. And it was talked about a little bit yesterday, actually, a lot about how AI is going to impact that. And every one of the companies yesterday and that are here today are all looking at AI in some way to help change the behavior of how people interact with CRM systems. And I think that the overall approach that you're going to see is that this year, as John mentioned yesterday, the evolution will continue and lead to a revolution. And it's going to be very much interesting to see how people and organizations apply this revolution. And when we think about it, a lot of them are looking at how do I move past legacy technologies and into a more modern feel. Also, yesterday, Seth mentioned how people interact with them, the human-machine interface improvements, how they visualize data, how they work with data, how they centralize data, moving towards more of an idea or methodology of one platform is probably going to be a significant driver, whether it's unifying data in a data lake and interacting with the CRM, moving things into a consolidated data source within the CRM. I think these will be major trends that people are going to be working towards achieving in 2024 so that they can to start to take advantage of the generative AI capabilities, the machine learning capabilities, et cetera.
Let's go to Clint.
So I'm still kind of bristling at yesterday's comment from, I think it was Rob Tarkoff, that CRM has jumped the shark. Was it Rob that said that?
That was Rob.
Couldn't disagree more, man. And thanking him for putting a controversial statement out there, because every company that I'm working with is embracing CRM more than they ever have before. They've kind of gone from early stage training wheels to adopting customer relationship management tools across every function in the front office. And what I see happening in 2024 more than ever before is every department, sales, marketing, and service in the front office working together seamlessly with one CRM system, one view of the customer, one integrated set of business processes with no no dropping of the ball in the handoffs from team to team. And that's the practical reality that is just absolutely happening today. And to me, that's the testimony of CRM as a success. Now, beyond that, how do I pass up the opportunity to say AI, right? AI is absolutely going to affect the CRM industry, but it's not just going to affect the CRM industry. It's going to affect all of our lives. It's all of the tools that we're using, whether it's a business application or something that we're using on our phone throughout the day. The user interface is changing. Gen AI is the new user interface, and it's going to change everything. There's my take.
All right, Shampa.
Yeah, firstly, I'm really proud, really honored to be here discussing the future of CRM with my colleagues. Well, the way I look at it is usually I try to divide it up between how customer journey itself is changing versus how the technology that we will use to kind of implement that customer journey. So to me, the way we used to have a linear customer journey, and companies basically would use CRM to push the customers step by step along that path, along that journey has completely changed. So I think the way I look at it, the customer journey more and more is becoming, let's say, circular, in the sense that there is no beginning and there is no end that we can detect. And what I mean by that is, let's say, there is this prospect that you don't even know about, and she is convincing her company to come buy your service or your product. Or you could have like an ex-customer, who's already churned, but that person is influencing thousands to buy or maybe not buy your product or service. So how do you define who's important? I mean, that person might not be right now, there's no revenue coming from that person, but that's not to say that that person is not impacting your bottom line or your revenue of the company. So how are we going to handle those things, that circular customer journey? So I think, more and more as we go forward, 2024 and beyond, we will have to change the very nature of organizations to put customer literally at the center and accomplish those specific, the journey with no start or end point, and kind of, organize your departments around this, all your sales, marketing, and your service, customer support, product management. So what I foresee, the technology, AI coming up, is just going to help you do that. It's going to probably blur the boundaries between these departments, make data sharing easier. It'll give you more insights how to manage such customers. It's and there's kind of data coming at you through a hose pipe. It's like a tsunami of data coming in. So and with all these new channels of how the customer is kind of interacting with you increasing day by day. So AI is going to help us make sense out of that. It's going to help us give you the insights. But I think organizations themselves will have to change to kind of accommodate that customer journey. So yeah, that's my take on what we are going to see 2024 and beyond.
Tara.
Yeah, Shampa is totally right. So the customer journey is no longer linear, right? It's not a straight line. It looks more like sort of like octopus tentacles. And we're on different channels and devices doing different things at the same time. So we heard someone mention yesterday about predictive analytics and using first-party data better. But I think in 2024, in order to keep up with customers, we're going to have to go from predictive to adaptive modeling and analytics, right? We need to be in the moment with customers. And so using adaptive with AI to make sure we're meeting their needs and not just on historical interactions or historical data, but really in the moment with them is going to be critical. And I think we're also going to see a lot of platform culling. We have a lot of bloated tech stacks and third-party cookies are going away. So we're going to see the whole gamut of wanting interoperability between applications in our tech stacks.
And last but certainly not least, Vijay.
Thank you for having me. A lot has been covered here. I'm going to focus on two things that I see as the future here. I think the future of CRM is going to be mostly hampered by the use of the term CRM, which seems to restrict what it is actually used for. A CRM system, I see, will actually become the business system of the future. Maybe it should be called something else, or maybe BOSS, business operating software system, something like that. Because it's going to send to what company does. And we've seen this across, even within the company, across different functions, sales, support, marketing, finance, and so on. I think we're also going to see this across companies. So think of one of the newer business models we've seen, say the food industry. Someone like you have ghost kitchens, you have restaurants or caterers who use ghost kitchens, you have delivery companies to deliver it, and then you have the customer, and you have to coordinate all of this, right? So that's a business model that spans organizations, not just within an organization. That's going to be the role of the CRM. Would you really be calling it a CRM at that point? So that's an example of where I see it going, a business operating system that will just bring together all the data that you need from other systems, but be the place that you will do to orchestrate your entire business. The second trend that I would see is deep customization. We've talked about market as horizontal systems, went into verticals. Now it's going to be a system that's tailored to a specific company. And that's going to be largely because we have the tools to do it. We have the low-code stuff, all the ability to customize, all the stuff that will make it very easy to build this exactly how your company needs it. So those are the two trends that I see.
All right. So given that, I was talking with a very small CRM vendor yesterday, a brand new one. I mean, they're not brand new. I just had never heard of them. And we're talking, their customer base is small business, and it's focused on real simple SFA kind of stuff. I began then, as a result of that conversation, I began looking across the web on a bunch of stuff and started going back in some notes I had from something else. And the one thing that I kept finding was that most of the small, right up to the early stages of mid-business, are looking for pretty much the simplest possible thing they can get to do what they have to do. Mm-hmm. AI doesn't make things more convenient. It does. It makes things potentially easier, but it doesn't make things simpler, right? By a long shot, really. And it's a whole new learning mode for most people. But most of the people, especially when you're on the lower ends heading to the middle, so to speak, they're not interested in something that they have. They're just interested in taking care of whatever business they got, not the rest of the stuff. So what about that, though? I mean, look, obviously, it's already started here. It was dominant yesterday. The discussion around Gen AI, one way or the other, was the core of a lot of the discussion, and will continue to be. But what about those people who mostly aren't really looking for AI per se, unless they see that makes things super simple to them? What do you do? How do you handle it? Is it going to be something, well, sorry, you're going to have to learn Gen AI regardless, or are you going to be still providing things that don't use it? Because it's hard for a vendor to provide something without saying, well, we don't use AI. You literally look, it's becoming table stakes. And even when you're dealing with smaller business. So how do you handle that? Given 2024 small business still has a lot of new businesses who stay small. And how are you going to handle them in 2024 when Gen AI is the talk of the town and pretty much got the use cases to make a good case for its adoption? Anyone can start.
I'll love to jump in on that one. I'll lead off with a thought, Paul. What's the three most important things in real estate?
Location, location, location.
What's the three most important things in software? Easy, easy, easy. Easy trumps everything.
I agree.
100%. No matter how, the classic comparison between a Mac desktop and a Windows desktop, though Windows, I think, has come a long way in the last 10 years. But the whole point of easy, 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 and easy trumps everything in the end. And I think that's absolutely the case as we think about everything coming ahead of us. But I'll tell you, I expect in 2-3 years, we won't even be talking about AI. not because it will go away, because it will just be part of what we're doing. I still remember at the front end of my career in CRM, we talked about relational databases.
Yeah.
Relational databases are cool. Like, what? Who talks about the database technology underneath their CRM solution these days?
The same person that would walk up on the street and ask you, what is CRM?
Is your CRM running on a relational database? Yeah, and more. But and that's what it's going to be with AI. AI is, especially with Gen AI. Gen AI is the definition of easy, in my opinion. I'll draw another analogy in there. To me, predictive AI is all about C3PO, and Gen AI is all about R2D2.
Wow.
Oh,
Did I go nerd level?
Oh, you went to DEFCON 5 nerd level on that one.
Wow.
Goldenrod, as we like to call C3PO, spouting out statistics all the time. And what was Han Solo's number one response to it? Stop talking to me about the statistics. I'm just going to go get the job done, right? But when it came to turning off the trash compactor, who did you turn to? R2D2, because that guy just got stuff done. And that's what Gen AI is all about. I'll finish off with just a little story that we just did. And by the way, the genie's out of the bottle on this one. I thought twice about telling the story, but I'm going to go ahead and tell it. Our CIO was negotiating with one of our software vendors on a contract. Our CFO came back to the CIO, new CFO came back to the CIO and said, hey, you need to get a lower price. So our CIO went to ChatGPT, put in a prompt that says, use psychological negotiation tactics to get me a specific price. And what ChatGPT came back with, and it was just this awesome email that said, we have a new CFO, and implied in the email that the CIO would get fired if they didn't get a pricing concession. And here's the target price that we're looking for. And then the ChatGPT leaned on the fact that we've had a long-term relationship with this vendor and a bit of a personal relationship as well, and came back with this beautiful email that a day later, the vendor came back and met our price. How about that? And by the way, I thoroughly recognize there's going to be somebody who uses that technique against us as well.
You just let it out of the bag there.
That's right.
But isn't that what ChatGPT is? It's changing the way we think about computing, right? Rather than click, 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 and oh wait, there's a predictive AI component saying you have an 88% chance of not getting the price that you want. It just gives you the answer, like R2D2 just gives you the answer, and that's where we're going, and that's going to be the new way of thinking about computing ahead of us.
All I ask now, Clint, if you could make some Doctor Who references, that would be great for me.
Never been a fan of Doctor Who.
Oh no, Clint! You literally, now that the Patriots are so bad, you're literally losing to the question we were about to ask people starting in 2024. Holy cow.
Anyway.
At some point, I'm going to get a Rams-Niners reference in here, but I'm saving that for later.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for that. By the way, Mike Boyson, your comment is great, but it's so big, it would cover up Vijay's face, so I'm not going to post it on the screen right now. But it's a really good comment.
All right. Can I offer a take on that? I think my own personal frustration with a lot of business systems is they get complex, right? There are too many things, people keep building stuff into it. And I think at some point, the role of AI and all these technologies will be, just tell me what I need to do. So I log into the system, and whatever system it is, in this case, we're talking a CRM. What should I do today? You know, what's a red light issue? You know, what is an orange light issue that I might prevent? And just tell me that. So if the system can distill that and bring that to me and tell me what to do, that goes back to the point here, earlier point on ease. It's now simplicity. So that's one thing that simplifies it even for the smallest businesses that don't want to get lost in the complexity. The other part is just do some of my work for me. Here you talked about this example right here of writing that letter. You know, AI will, and all these technologies will become drafters of everything. Whether it's emails, whether it's strategies, whether it's predictions, whether it's forecasts, all of that will get drafted, and then the human element can come in and work on that. So that, in a sense, even though systems are complex, they'll make it easier for people, because a few years down the road, all the AI and everything will be hidden, and that's all you're going to see.
Right. And if I can, I totally agree with Vijay there. And if I can expand on that a little bit, what I think is a CRM is almost like an entire system. It's not just a technology, but how do you kind of set up your processes? I mean, to even be able to get to the point where AI is telling you what to do, how are you going to actually set it up so that it can even tell you what to do? Like, for example, even today, what I tell my team that if you're going to automate a process that doesn't work, if you're not kind of, if it doesn't work without that automation, if you automate it, you just get some garbage on steroids, right? You just still, it's doing the wrong thing, it's just doing it on steroids. So I would think that going forward, the same thing is going to happen for AI, where even before you kind of, start using it, you need to be able to step back and think how it's going to add value to your organization. And once you have thought through that, once you have set it up, and then we can definitely, it's going to become almost like that step is hidden. It was not even needed. And now that ease of use, and now that AI telling you exactly what to do is going to come into the picture.
Yeah, I think that we've hit on what's the most important topic here, which is ease of use, right? Mm-hmm. Making sure that the most relevant information is available, making sure that it is easy for the person who is working on the system to understand. Seth brought it up yesterday that the interfaces between human and machine need to get better. We need to have a focus on employee experience. So as Clint mentioned, it's all about ease of use. So having pre-built packages, having easy to use user interfaces, and using the ability, and you mentioned it even earlier, Paul, to have these almost composable pieces that can be used, plugged and played. So if you're not that large enterprise, you're not buying shelfware, you're using what you need and not complicating it by having a bunch of things that you don't. I think these are also very important factors that will lead to a good adoption.
I liked what Jason said there about specific packages. I do think this is a major trend ahead of us in the CRM industry, is that we're going to get much more vertical specific than we've had in the past. CRM historically has been a very horizontal industry. And in the end, companies want software that works for them specifically. And the answer in the past has always been, a flexible framework that allows you to quickly configure, don't say the word customize, but quickly configure your CRM to your particular business needs. I'll be honest, that's been a Band-Aid approach. What companies really want is just give me the solution that's designed for my business. I'm in the heavy trucking industry. Give me the heavy trucking solution. I'm in the food processing industry. I want the solution for food processing. And I think it goes beyond just product marketing and spinning a story. I think products are going to be more and more industry vertical specific than they have been in the past. And you're going to see that not just from niche vendors, but you're going to see that from mainstream CRM vendors.
Right, because when you think about customizations, they're great in the beginning, and then down the line, when you need to make changes or upgrades, it doesn't always go as planned, right?
Shh, we don't say customizations anymore. We say configurations.
Hey, let me piggyback on with Clint on a little bit of a thread here. Sugar really was a pioneer when it came to open source software, particularly business applications open source. Mm-hmm. And for a while there, people would say, "Oh, Sugar's just the open source solution," and it felt like there was like a negative connotation. But how does it feel in 2023 going into 2024, where everybody's talking about open again, and it's open is kind of leading the way? And how do you think about it, knowing what it was in the origins and when it kind of came in the middle, and now open is seeming to be the driving force behind all this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's so I look back on I'm laughing at yesterday's comment about 2004 versus 2024, because Sugar, we started the company back in 2004. And I look back on 2004 and what was happening in 2004 was a big backlash to the enterprise sales techniques of, a team of high-priced sales reps show up in an office, give you this perfect smoke and mirrors demo. You sign a perpetual contract with the vendor. The vendor walks away, drops the software, and says, "Good luck." Right? And there was a lot of reaction to that phenomenon that really kind of frankly defined the dot-com boom of way back when, which was putting control back in the hands of the buyer, right? So we had subscription software model, which I think is by far the single most important thing that's happened in software in the last 30 years, in my mind, is subscription, forcing the vendor to continuously keep the customer as a customer. But in there, we also had open source, try before you buy. And we had cloud. I can run it for you better than you can probably run it yourself. And all of those different aspects were about putting control back in the hands of the customer and giving them the ability to really make sure that technology was working for them and they weren't working for technology. Taking a step further and kind of unpacking the open source trend of 2004 to 2014, it was really about transparency. It's about a different way of having a relationship with a vendor where it was based around trust. It was around transparency. And open was the term that really embodied these ideas of we're in this together. And you can trust me, and I'm going to be your partner. And I look at what's happening today, and those concepts never go away as being important. Every software vendor has to be open, transparent, has to be a partner, has to be thoroughly invested in the customer success first. And to me, that's really the key thread that kind of ties that all together over the last 20 years.
So I've got something I'm really just struck me actually based on Alan's last comment. Yesterday, there was no discussion of industry really at all, not a bit. Today, there's some, at least indicators of it. On the other hand, if you're looking at horizontal CRM applications and technology, it's not much of a greenfields anymore, really. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but it's not like it's this gigantic. I mean, it's become the world's largest business software category for a reason, right? So, and if you look at the basic functionality horizontally, it's pretty much the same. It doesn't mean that there aren't nuances. There aren't, to both Jason and Clint's point, easy, and also UI, UX aren't different and actually meaningfully different in many cases. But where people are seeing opportunity from a vendor side and also seeing need from a practitioner side is industry. And the question is, I guess, how do you see that? Now, do you see this as, okay, there's 100 industries out there that can have CRM that's tailored, again, to configured toward or integrated with, not customized to, is tailored toward that specific industry? Or are there 5 or 6 or 7 dominant ones, which there kind of are, but that everyone's going after, and historically everyone has? Where are the outliers in this? I mean, what is the outlook for CRM in the industries next year? I mean, how do you look at it? Where do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I'd like to start on this one if I can. Sorry, Vijay, go ahead. If you want to, go ahead.
No, please do.
I think it's a combination of both. There are definitely those big 5 V6, right? The banking, financial service, insurance, manufacturing, CPG, et cetera, that have a dedicated need that everybody in today's call and yesterday's call goes after, right? And there's a lot of it out there. That's why we all go after it. But having the ability to customize through configuration, as we've talked about it today, is extremely important. And having pre-built packages for those industries is extremely important. And I think for the most part, most of us here have those things. What is very unique, though, is the ability, as you're going through the motions as a company, being able to speak their language between yourself, your system integrator partners, and the customer, speaking the same language. So having the ability to have that knowledge as you go. As we all know, it's very difficult to find people with a lot of industry-specific knowledge, especially on the IT side. That's why more and more of us are working towards incorporating the business side, incorporating and empowering business users to work with technology through a variety of tools, open tools, no-code tools, low-code tools. Being able to pull those folks that really do have that business knowledge together with the customer to drive effective solutions is also a very big trend that we're starting to see, and I think others would agree with that.
Okay.
If I were to make a point on this topic, I think the notion of of having even a product for an industry is broad. Even within industries, people participate in different parts of the industry. Think of insurance. You could be an underwriter or you could be an agent, completely different business models. So what does it mean to have a system for the insurance business? So I think what we'll find is solutions that are tailored in a number of ways, even within industries. And a couple of things that will make it happen. We've all talked a lot about allowing the system itself to be configured so the end customer can design it the way they want. The second aspect of it is also the ability for the system to reflect the culture of the company. Mm-hmm. And that's really important, because a lot of systems that we see, business systems, are set up with built-in processes and think of even how CRM evolved. There's a notion of how we do sales at Zoho, for example, would be entirely different from how, say, a company like Salesforce does sales. So putting together a model that imposes a certain set of stages and pipelines and methodology is trying to fit a process into a corporate culture that might be unwilling to accept it. So the second part of this, how this thing needs to work, is to allow these systems to reflect the culture of the company so they can adapt it that way and not just their business process.
Culture is so important, I think, both in adoption of the technology, right, and just offering what these different verticals would need. For example, in FinServe, they have compliance and regulatory challenges that other industries don't have. So your solution needs to be able to meet those challenges, right? Transparency, how you're handling your data within the system, things like that.
Right. And what I think is there are two sides to it. One is the solution itself needs to be customizable or configurable enough so that you can accommodate your customers' business processes and methodologies. But at the same time, as Jason said, that it's very, very hard to find IT people who speak the same language as the industry. So to be able to find that balance and talk in the language of the industry, so that same customer to somebody could be a patient or could be a client or could be a student, but from that industry, somebody from IT looks at it probably almost the same way. We are defining it is in the same way. But that's not actually it. From the point of view of the industry, it's very, very different on what kind of methodologies and what kind of terminologies we are going to say. So I think, going forward, we are going to have to create our solutions in a way that it is very specific to that industry.
I'm going to go a step further, and frankly, to a certain degree, disagree with the other folks' perspectives. I'm going to look at the ERP industry as an example here. ERP industry is about 30 years older than the CRM industry. And if you've been put my industry analyst hat on for a moment, if you look at the ERP industry, it went through a period of being a very horizontal set of solutions and then becoming very industry specific. And in order for that to be successful, it's not just about the words you put around your solution, but you got to have capabilities that are specific to the industries. In the end, we're all product companies. We have to be delivering product that is very much tailored to the industries that we're working with. I'm going to unpack the manufacturing industry for a second. In the world of go-to-market models, is your go-to-market model a hunter go-to-market model, a farmer go-to-market model, or a hybrid of the two? And when you go into the manufacturing industry and you really start unpacking the way that those companies go to market, they're primarily farmer models. Very rarely does a manufacturing company, unless they're a CPG company selling to end consumers, but if you're a manufacturing company that's part of a supply chain, very rarely are you finding a new logo, right? You tend, it's very much the case that every single company who could be buying from you. They're either buying from you now or they bought from you in the past. And you're looking to either recapture those customers or keep your existing customers and grow your share of wallet. So you need a CRM solution that's tailored to the farming model. And in that farming model, it doesn't start with go out and buy a list and go prospecting and cold calling or try and do an inbound marketing angle with it. It's a completely different account management centric solution. And if you're going to be a leader in manufacturing CRM, you have to embrace manufacturing CRM go-to-market are based around farming. And so I think the product has to show the capabilities that are specific to the industry. And it's more than just the words, though the words part is incredibly important too.
You know, Clint, I don't completely agree with that. And I'll try to explain my point of view on this. I think there may be a bias of looking at verticalization that's based on how big industries are verticalized. You know, so you talked about the example of somebody being a farmer. That's once you're established, once you're set up. But when you're a company growing up in a new business, you're starting with new processes. You're doing completely new things. So you can't have this standardized approach to your industry that was conceived of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because you as a retailer are doing things completely differently today. You're an e-commerce world. You are on a one-to-one personalization venture with your customers. So I think in a sense, the CRM needs to adapt that rather than maybe be fixated on a perception of how an industry was.
I 100% agree, Vijay. If you think about it, even the change in manufacturing styles over the last 10 years, going to a lot size 0 or lot size 1, that has influenced every aspect of the supply chain. Even if you think about it, the whole value chain stream, it used to be CIRM, CPM, CIPM. Now it's CSCP. It's the entire value stream, because it's all become blurred. So the systems, the ERP systems, the CRM systems have to be able to work across that entire value chain. That means strategizing and streamlining your processes, and it needs to be flexible as your business changes. It has to be able to adapt and change just as fast. So having that flexibility built in, having lightweight solutions, agile solutions that can easily transform with the business. Because Vijay, even your point, as companies grow up, especially if they're coming into a market that's either already saturated or that is growing at a pace that they need to be able to change, you know, not only tactically that they execute, but strategically, the system has to be able to keep up with it.
All right, that was a pretty interesting.
I actually want to dig deeper, but I'm containing myself for a moment here. Where do you want to go next, Brent?
I don't know.
I'm going
to come back to the point. Vijay, I disagree with you, right? So in there, even if you're a small company and you're manufacturing something like this here is from one of our customers. It's a drill bit, and if you're building drill bits, or if you're working for one of our other customers where they do insulation for cables and cabling systems. If you're working within a supply chain and you're a small company and you're just now breaking in, the number of customers that buy your particular component that's tailored to a very specific market is still a very finite list. You're not going to go to Zoom Info and say, give me a list of every single company that buys these type of widgets. You're going to, you know who those companies are. And so the CRM solution that you need to help you be successful there is not about how do you go find companies that you didn't know about before, but how do you go penetrate into those companies? How do you build relationships with those companies, with individuals in those companies? How do you map out the relationships within those companies and understand your network that can get you into that company? Very different from new logo hunting in there. And again, in the world of lot size 1, when you're working with a company that does engineer to order and every single order is a very unique and different order, you've got to have CRM capabilities that are designed to be able to manage the process of an engineer to order company versus a company that sells make to stock solutions that are very turnkey across the board. There are absolutely product capabilities and nuances that you have to be very specific to in order to be successful in those industries. And again, I'm going to come back to the core point that I fundamentally believe it's much more than just a product marketing exercise and being able to speak the language. Speaking the language is critical, but you got to have product that backs you. You got to have product that backs you up.
Okay. Do you get a chance to come back?
Yeah,
go ahead. Well, you get a response, and then we'll move on to something after this.
This question ends when it ends.
Yeah.
Okay. I accept your point that you need to understand a business in some depth when you're providing a solution for it. I don't think anybody would contest that. I would talk about how constraining that thinking is. That's my point. And I'll give you 2 examples. One is that think of the number of industries that have cropped up in the last 2 decades that didn't exist before. new business forms, share economy companies. So if you had started with the premise that I'm going to define processes for these industries, you'd never be able to serve them. So that's the first point. The second thing is that companies keep evolving their processes. So even within a staid industry, things change. Things move from inventory to JIT and now back to inventory because of the kinds of things we've seen. So things change. So if you put in place processes and rigidity to follow the systems of an existing industry, you will cater to the primary large entrenched players, but you'll miss out on a lot of the new people who will be the players of the future. So that's my only distinction.
And all it takes is one disruption. I don't know, COVID, to completely take all that thinking and throw it out the window.
100%.
That was a great exchange. I don't know.
I think that's an important point, but I don't think it changes what I'm saying in there, right? You know, every company has to have nimble business processes. Every company has to be ready to listen to their customers and adjust the way they're thinking. But at the end, the process of delivering a fire truck to a customer that is buying a fleet of trucks, the sales and operations planning process that a manufacturing company lives within, and by the way, I've turned this whole conversation to the manufacturing industry specifically. We can hit other ones, but companies that have a delivery mechanism of whatever that it is that they sell, that is a very sophisticated and invested solution. You got to be able to marry yourself to that. Other industries that have a much lighter weight delivery mechanism of their product or service are going to be shifting and evolving very quickly, and you need to be able to address that too. Absolutely. In the end, lightweight business processes that are quick to change and adjust to the way that customers are engaging with you is absolutely one of the core definitions of success for every company. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that point. I don't think it changes what I'm saying in there in terms of you need to be able to help companies that have a very specific way of delivering, realize that in their front office activities.
Absolutely, until it changes.
All right. That was great. Almost didn't want that one to end, but we move on since we only have a few more minutes. You know, I had a conversation, recorded a conversation yesterday. It'll go up probably next week on, for PPN stuff. One-on-one discussion with Dharmesh Shah over at HubSpot. And we were just talking about, just going back and forth on a lot of stuff, but he said something that really resonated with me. And I wanted to kind of throw it into this conversation. Everybody kind of knew HubSpot for marketing and their content. And then they transferred that into what they are now, which is a full-blown CRM platform. But Dharmesh said in the early days, what they did, they noticed that internet marketing was pretty new. This is like the 2005, 2006 timeframe, very new. Most people didn't know the power of it, let alone what to do with it. And part of what they did in building their company was evangelizing what ended up being inbound marketing. And that was the term that he said, yeah, we didn't kind of copyright it. We wanted it to be out and want other companies to use it. And that would help spread the knowledge and the word of the importance of it. And we would grow as part of it. He put out a tweet last week that says, basically, I feel the same about what's going on with AI as I did when we first decided to go and build a CRM suite. And the question is the opportunity, do you see the opportunity or the inflection of what's going on with AI as big as what we saw in those early days? And then what role do you guys each want to play in the evangelizing what's going on here and the education of probably more the education, because I think that's one of the more missing components. Everybody's kind of focused on the evangelizing, but there's a lot of education that needs to go along before people can actually understand what they can do and then use platforms to actually do it. What role do you have as your individual companies in wanting not just we want people to use our platform, but we really have to show them and educate them on what can be done, not just the kind of the efficiency play, which is always going to be the first thing. You first start using stuff, you're trying to use it to make your job easier, be more productive, less expensive. But the power of this goes way beyond that, to open up your mind to be able to do things that you never even thought you could do before. What role do you feel you all have to play from a company perspective in that aspect of what's going on here today?
Yeah, I think that the advent of what we're seeing right now with AI is bigger than probably anything we've seen before. And that's just because it's just permeating every piece of our culture, not just business. I think as it relates to sort of what Peg is working on, one of the things that hasn't been talked about yet is responsible AI. And that's kind of a buzzy word right now, but we're seeing, the executive order from the White House that just came out. And over at Pega, we talk about having explainable AI, transparency, and just, as a historical marketer, I would say that consumer trust and customer trust is at an all-time low with brands after some of the data breaches that we've seen. So having trustworthy AI built into your systems is going to be a critical way that you can not just show your own customers, but their customers, hey, we're looking out for you. We're not going to mess around with your data. We're, in certain verticals, as we talked about earlier, we're compliant and we're mitigating risk for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think what AI is doing is it has completely put the concept of CRM itself in a flux. It's CRM, the term itself is kind of broadening in scope, in the sense, traditionally it's been sales using it, right? But now, is it just sales, or who else can use it? Are you just going to have your customers being managed through CRM? Who is really your customer? What are the other entities who can be managed? How about building a partner network or managing your vendors or affiliates? What are the processes that you could manage your CRM? Is it just your sales processes, or could you even manage your products, manage your pricing strategies? So I think just with the advent of AI and the amount of data that we're seeing, the entire concept of CRM is broadening to the extent that it's becoming very, 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 very exciting. And that's where we are trying to evangelizing on just don't narrow down your thought process just because the word CRM, the word customer is broad now. It's becoming more undefined, but the relationship word in CRM is becoming more important than ever. So with that, how AI is going to help on that area, creating that relationship between your customer, whoever you define as a customer, is what we're trying to talk about in the coming days.
At Pega, we talk about, to your point, Shampa, we talk about empathy, right? So AI injecting empathy into your customer engagements.
Yeah.
And that means every time you talk to them, you're not trying to sell them something.
Yes.
So you're really meeting their needs. You're engaging with them in a way that's personalized, yet respectful of their privacy. Absolutely. I think that, we hear a lot of people say that we've cracked personalization with our customers, and that's just not true. There's still terrible personalization out there, right? So if we can, whether it's in service or sales or marketing, if we can use AI to demonstrate that we really care about our customers' needs, I think that's a critical use case for AI.
Right. Absolutely agree, Tara. And everyone's talking about this hyper personalization, putting out things that's very, very specific to them. So one, I think, there are two aspects to this really, because one is the human element. We are so attached, and especially, ConvergeHub being a little smaller business, we are so attached to our customers. We get very, very personal. There are customers who are confiding to us about very personal things,
Sure.
which I would never want AI to touch. They are talking about their personal lives. I don't want to suggest stuff to do based on, what they are confiding to us. That is a human element there. But on the other side, there are other things that, of course, AI can do with personalization, but you don't really want them to give you, wrong information or irrelevant content, which has happened to, I think, all of us there. You try to, you try to buy a product, and, on different channels, you're being asked the same questions again and again by just different people, or maybe now different machines. So that's something that, we'll have to, I think, take control of.
Brent,
AI will be successful. Sorry, Clint.
Yeah, no, Brent, you asked one question, what do we look at as our responsibility? And I think all of us have the same point, which is we all have two pieces that we need to play here. One is the evangelization piece of it, which is not so much about evangelizing how AI is going to be used. We're all going to do that. But the education piece is talking to people about how to use it, how to govern it, right? The likening of AI being a growing child that is still learning, that must be monitored, trained, controlled, but always have an adult watching over it is such a true statement. And we need to make sure that those things are built into everything that we do as we roll AI out. And that's a super important piece to Shampa's point is, hallucinations happen, bad data in, bad data out. So you have to make sure that those things are controlled. And I think that falls on all of us as we continue to roll these things out to make sure that those controls are out there.
Absolutely. Every person in your company has a responsibility to be a steward of that, right? So having a human in the loop, it's paramount. AI is it's to augment what we're doing, right? It's not to replace human creativity or human connections. It's really to augment and help us connect better with our customers.
If slightly different tack here. If the question is how you, as a member of your organization, would want to advocate or speak for AI, we would take a slightly different stance. I would say the stance we would take is show me the money, So tell me where the value is, and we will do that with certain set of clear examples, which are not broad generalities of what AI can do, but something very specific. I'll give you an example. So we are in a multi-product business. We're a multi-product company. We have a CRM, we have finance systems, everything else, right? So we would explain, we're doing this ourselves. We would go and look at information from the financial system, triangulate it with information in the CRM system, and tell an account manager or tell a finance manager, for example, here are your delinquencies. And here we're bringing in data from other systems and telling them what they need to do. If you sat in a customer-facing system, you might never figure that out. So that's one example. We might tell an account manager that there's something about a tendency for certain customers to churn. So in other words, I know I'm getting very specific here, but that is the point. The point is the advocacy of AI is in showing why it is material to you and what it's going to change about how you execute your work. And I think that is making some of the tasks that are harder to do, that are harder to predict, that sometimes have to triangulate information across multiple systems. And when you are a multi-product company, it makes it easier for you to do that because you can bring it all together.
I'll pop it up a level here as we wrap up. Software as a service. That's what we do, right? As a service. For so long, the idea of the as a service meant we'll run the software for you on our servers and take care of all that hard IT goopy bits in the background, right? But the reality is what customers want. Here's another key point. Customers don't want to buy software. Nobody wants to buy software. They want to buy business outcomes. Software is just the path to the business outcome. Our role as a service is to guide them to those business outcomes. So we need to be more than just technology experts. We need to be business experts. We need to be domain experts. We need to be showing them the path forward to those business outcomes. And more as software gets easier and easier and easier, our role becomes more and more to be that Sherpa towards the outcomes that they're looking for.
No Yoda reference there, Clint?
I was working on it. I was getting there in just a second. There is no try, just do.
I actually have a final question, but there's no time to answer it. But what I'm going to do is give you the question. Then I'm going to reach out to you all and get the answers from you, and then we'll play them. And this is the most basic of basic questions. And Shampa was hinting at it.
What's the meaning of life?
No, but it's pretty close to that.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's what is your definition of CRM? Period. What's your definition of it? Because I have heard about 700 definitions already, and that's among the 6 of you. And then I've heard about another 700 yesterday. And this historically, we know that SFA is what people think CRM is, and it's not. A few years ago, people tried to inject e-commerce into CRM as a pillar because it was in their self-interest to do so. Is that the case now, or what? And I had someone who literally tried to tell me it had been there since the beginning, and I'd literally written about 2,800 pages on the definition of CRM by that time. So it was a little ridiculous to try to tell me that. So, but the question is, what is your? If somebody says to you, that same person who walked up on you on the street, or if you're in New York, you should have said, "Get lost." I don't know you, by the way, but. That same person asks you, what is your definition of CRM? And I want it like your formal definition of CRM. And I'm going to follow up with each of you, and then we're going to play them.
He will. He knows where you all live.
I do. I will come up to you. I will wait till I see you on the street and come up.
All right. Well, wow. I didn't see that ending. You guys getting homework as a way to
and a threat of stalking.
Exactly right.
But no, this has been a fascinating hour conversation. I wish we could go longer because the exchanges and interactions were awesome. But we're out of time, and we don't want to impose any more than we already have on you guys. So thanks to, let me see, Dezao from Pega, Shampa, Bagchi from ConvergeHub, Clint. I always got to say Sugar, Clint, Oram from Sugar, Vijay from Zoho, and Jason, who I don't think I ever really talked to before right now. So it's a pleasure meeting you. And thanks for joining us for this great hour. All of you. Thanks again.
Yeah, you guys were great. Really.
Thank you. Thank you. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our presidential debates were conducted with the civility we have?
No, don't go there.
Well,
I was having such a nice time, Vijay.
I know, man. Knock the whole thing down.
Wow. And on that note, goodbye.
All right. Have a great one.
All right. We'll see you guys. But we're still here because guess what? We got the post-game show that we have to do. So I see one of our guests. Oh, wait a minute, Tara, you're still here? What are you doing?
I'm leaving. I'm trying to get out. Let me out.
See you. So I see 1, 2.
We should have 3 total.
Well, so we'll wait for the third. So impressions before we.
Oh, I love that discussion. I thought it was great. And I thought it was really fascinating as to the, I don't know, they're almost the philosophical differences that were there, between, say, Vijay and Clint, and then there was some in-betweens, for a number of people.
Right.
I thought that was great. And I also thought that it was very interesting because it was also very much practical.
Right.
It was a practical discussion. Yesterday was also pretty practical, but at the same time had kind of, yesterday was big enterprises talking about big enterprises.
I gotta shout out Jason's last parting shot. Go Navy. My dad was in the Navy, so I'll go with that too.
See, my dad was in the Air Force, so I don't care.
All right, so I do see our 3 post-game analysts. So let me pop.
Let's get them in first.
So
we'll talk later.
Here's a little give you a shot. One of them is missing, but give us
Lori.
a little rundown. Quick rundown of this.
Not feeling well.
Right.
But Thomas, Kevin, Martin, Keith. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Kevin. Actually, I do know why I said Kevin. Oh my God. It's a 5th grade memory. That's all I can tell you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, really? It's true. I literally went to school with Kevin Kirkpatrick, right?
Maybe there's a relation there.
Thomas, Keith, and Martin, all 3 of them experienced long-time analysts, all 3 of them extremely well acquainted with the space we're talking about, very, very highly regarded in the industry. I don't know Keith's history too well, but I know Martin, for example, has also spent a good deal of time, as has Thomas, on the vendor side. So they also have experience on that end. I think this is a really, really, really interesting crew because of the both the long-term investment they've made in understanding what we're talking, what's been talked about, and at the same time, they're just their own histories. So,
all right, let's bring them out. Thomas,
hey,
Keith, not Kevin, but
my
Keith.
fifth grade buddy,
and of course Martin. Thanks, guys, for joining us. What did you think? I don't know how much you caught, but initial impressions. We'll go with Thomas first. And where's your Blues Brothers? You should be doing this with your Blues.
Oh my God!
Just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding.
If you really want,
there you go.
If you really
do it. Wow, right in hand.
Okay,
ready to go.
First thought is you forgot the invisible Kolsky that you announced on the slide.
No, he couldn't do it. We had dropped that a while
ago. That was yesterday's news, Thomas.
Yeah. Oh well. No, so what do I think is in general the discussion was in the same direction actually from Clint as well as from Vijay's point of view, just that they come from different angles. Vijay has the angle of a multi-product vendor that does not want to differentiate between front and back office, so has the full value chain in mind, whereas Clint comes from a pure play CRM thinking. And I think that's where the main difference is.
Yeah.
So there actually is not much of a difference in my eyes. Yeah. So the other thought is most of what most folks in that group said, it's not going to happen in 24.
When's it going to happen? Or is it going to happen?
It is going to happen. So the industry plays is in force. But on that detail level, it won't happen. It can't happen because, as Clint said, they are product vendors. They can't do micro verticals. That will be an ecosystem game. So the ISVs, SIs, and other partners will probably take care of those details. Although Martin might not agree.
I don't agree.
No. All right.
Well, Martin, let Martin.
Well, okay. I was going to go in order, but yeah, Martin.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, just to Thomas's last point, I mean, one of the things that didn't really get talked about, they talked a little bit about AI, they talked a little bit about industry stuff, but bringing those together, I mean, that's how you verticalize, right? I mean, the ability for AI, which is, it's the fastest code writing you'll ever do. It's the fastest configuration and customization you could ever do to meet, certain micro and macro processes. Obviously, like I said, the configuration, customization. So those are where I think is where it's going to come together. And that's where I think, AI has a really interesting play for, say, a single product-ish, it's called single focus because Sugar has multiple products, right? But single focus in CRM, to be able to, Sugar's never really verticalized in the past, but is AI their tool to verticalization faster than they ever could have in actually trying to do it the traditional, what's called software manufacturing way, right? Both through themselves and to Thomas's point, through the ecosystem, right? Whereas if you're giving the keys, to your platform, to both your customers and your both delivery and ISV partners, you're creating a verticalization strategy that is like way faster, better, cheaper than it ever was before Gen AI, for example, right? So I just think there's an interesting element there that people miss. But I would, to just kind of go back, you had the Blues Brothers like movie reference there with the hat. Because I want to quote what was it? Rodney Dangerfield as Thornton Mellon in the great movie Back to School. He says to the professor, he's like, "You left out a bunch of stuff." But I think one of the interesting things is like, we keep talking. So they're talking about the term CRM. They're talking about a lot of things around this very like kind of macro concepts. But and Mike Boyson was making a lot of really good comments. I think at the end of the day, when we're on like the business side of it, we're looking at outcomes
and we're using terms like CRM, we're using terms like CX, but I feel like buyer journeys, demand experience, like we're forgetting that like so much. Yeah, like customer outcome management. I love that. Because I feel like we're continuing to utilize these like very like kind of like both narrow but also like meaningless kind of terms. Whereas like what I really like about what things like demand experience, like converged growth, a pre and post sale alignment, like full journey. There's all these things where like CRM never really dealt with things after someone was a customer back in the day, right? It was actually a lot of sales automation, and then like call center and other stuff had some customer stuff, but that was customer support. We kind of joined them up, but they never really focused on workflow enough to create that full journey engagement where it's not just reactive, but it's also somewhat proactive, where it's also like, how do we set anybody up for success, both internally and on the customer side? And I was shocked to not hear a big, like awesome, like AI and workflow and all this stuff brings this full journey stuff together. Pega's on there, like that could be Pega's.
Well, Pega and Creatio both.
Yeah, and Creatio, they're workflow at their heart, right? So it was really interesting to see that not really brought up. So that's what I'm saying, is the left out. I was like, wow, I'm surprised I'm not here. Like I heard a little bit about workflow, but not as much. I feel like
so Tara is on the MarTech and AdTech side, so she's not core in the core.
What do you mean though? But that's the whole idea. MarTech needs to be full journey. You need to be marketing to people. In to Clint's point, if we're talking about subscription, we're talking about you always got to get people to renew, right? You should be marketing to the full life cycle and the full journey. That's like, you need to realign who your personas are and who you're targeting for different.
Totally agree with you, but
I didn't hear anything about that.
Well, but I'll just say this. Let me just
go, Keith.
I want to Keith's point.
I want to just say one thing, and then we'll go to Keith, if that's okay. Yesterday, Terrence Chesseray did touch on that from the ServiceNow perspective. He talked a lot about workflow and the trillions of data points that will help create a more successful workflow. And there's traditionally speaking, we have not connected AdTech and MarTech to the traditional aspects of workflow, not like you do in some of the verticals. So I see that's coming. But wow, I think we got a ways to go before those things are really connected in the way you're talking about.
I think it's like 5% of companies get it, or maybe 15% get it, 5% aren't even starting to do it. But that's the whole thing, is we're talking about 2024 and beyond. People got to start thinking about this.
You're right, but you need to. The quote I would have used from Rodney would be, "Where's your hat, Whitey?" from Caddyshack. Now that's the line. That's the line I would have used.
That's the one you use with Thomas.
No. All right. So Keith, first of all, do you have a relative named Kevin? And what were your initial thoughts of what you heard?
Too young.
I do have a relative named Kevin, but he is not a Kirkpatrick. So sorry to disappoint there. Well, I thought, just to kind of amplify what Martin was saying, I mean, we didn't hear a lot about, and I think it was brought up briefly, this whole idea of, customer journeys, are no longer linear, right? We're really starting to take a look at the customer journey as sort of an infinite loop where you can jump in, jump out, off at any part, and I guess, the other thing, of course, is looking at workflow in the same way. And it is interesting that, if you look at how we've kind of segmented software, obviously you have CRMs, kind of traditional CRMs. I think we are going to start to see a little bit more in terms of incorporating other types of functions, that are going to get, have CRMs look more like, an ERP system to a certain degree. And I think that's going to be really important, to really enabling this sort of, infinite loop of workflows and customer engagement, because you can't take, or you can't utilize software the same way it was used 10, 15 years ago and expect to be able to engage at all times and to really incorporate things like AI and get to that personalization that everyone's talking about. And, I think, I forget exactly who mentioned it, but, they're absolutely right. We're not even remotely close to getting that right at this point.
So what would be some of the functions that would be integrated into CRM that would make it, I'll call it more ERP-like? Even though that's not exactly the way I would.
ERP-ish?
No.
Right.
I mean, like what?
Well, I mean, certainly, using it as, your single source of truth. You cannot have customer engagement where you have, an interaction taking place and it's not recorded in real time, where it's not accessible in real time, because that's where you wind up with all of these, CX problems of, I called up 3 times, I couldn't get through, and your system doesn't know that I've just been frustrated for the last hour. That's a real problem.
Right.
And, it happens with even organizations, and I won't name them, that supposedly are getting the really high.
Oh, come on,
NPS.
nobody's listening, man. You can name them. Go ahead. We don't.
Let's blame it on the cloudification, because what Keith basically says is we created silos or recreated silos, and part of that is customer driven because they didn't want to pay for suites, and part of it is driven by, well, limiting CRM to SFA, or using SFA as a pass pro toto figure for CRM. And hence we had the need for creating something that we had before, customer data platforms. So as long as we work in silos and siloize even more and create buzzwords even more, as long as we do that, it won't happen. I'm pretty much with Paul on that. And when Paul and my former boss Bob on that, when he says basically we vendors get it all wrong.
Yeah, but
I got it wrong too.
I think you're more correct on the SFA part than the cloud part, because I would say the cloud is more enabling of breaking down the silos. And creating like a customer data value chain where the data can be stateless, it can do anything. There's some really interesting things that vendors are doing to make that better, right? And the cloud is an enabler in that, not an inhibitor. But I would say
they create it right now because they are in the need of fixing the stuff that they created before.
Yeah, but that was endemic to the entire industry. It's not like just one vendor's fault or another's. And I think that's what's and there's adjacent possibles and learning and iterating from there. And I think right now, the cloud in the very generic sense of the cloud is a very enabling factor for all this, because when you look at what AI and the cloud bring together, it enables you to really take and create customer data value chains in ways that we really couldn't before in a suite or in anything, because if it wasn't in that suite, you were kind of locked out of even getting that data, right? So I think it's better now because of that reluctance of going just into suites. But when you look at like how what like Salesforce is doing, or even pretty much any vendor working with like Amazon and working with others, making the load easier to manage, making the data easier to move, making it not have to be in a relational database to actually take action on it. Gen AI helping with that, just general like not generative, but just general AI, which sounds confusing, to get all that. And it's really it's really kind of interesting, because now I think we're able to get rid of a lot of those silos way more easily, but it really does have to be around, thinking from a workflow perspective, not just like a data perspective. So we'll see we'll see how people get it. And that workflow needs to be kind of full journey, but we'll see if people start thinking more that way and the outcomes.
All right, guys, I got something I couldn't ask the vendors, I'm asking you, but here's the deal. So back in 2015, we reached this juncture where we had CRM, we had CX, we had engagement, and we were trying to figure out what's the difference. And I literally wrote a piece on ZDNet on the clarity of definitions and went through definitions. And in the course of that, I went through the fact I've defined CRM 3 different times as it evolved. Okay, early definition, mid definition, when I was a little more optimistic about its general purpose, and the final definition, which was more systems and technology-ish. All right. Now we're clearly reaching that point again, because I literally in this conversation I've heard maybe not 700, you haven't had the time, but I've heard about 150 definitions of CRM. All right. So each of you, what is your actual definition of CRM? CRM. What is the definition of customer relationship management as you would define it now? Each one. And make it as formal.
You should pick one to go first. Pick one.
All right. I'll tell you what. Keith, you go first.
Okay. Sure you don't want Kevin?
Yeah,
I'll give your cousin.
Kevin.
Tell your cousin I'll give him a call after this is over.
Right. So customer relationship management, my sense, it has become a platform for enablement of outcomes. That is I mean, I think that we've gone past just looking at, the very basic, relationship between, one-to-one from company to customer. I think it has gone beyond, and it is about enabling outcomes. And that may be, very, very basic in terms of sales, but it also could be about, enabling an overall CX outcome, your experience, your total experience with a brand, with a product and a service. That would be how I would define it.
So are you saying, though, that means that CRM is the systems and the technologies for that? Or are you
it could be.
It could be. What else is it then? If it could be that means there's other things it could be. What would that be?
Well, I mean,
it's a hard question because honestly, I think we're at a juncture where it's calling for a redefinition at this point because it's good. It's still a business software, a business technology category that people are buying, right? So, and CRM's had a million different, and to all of your points, it tends specifically to get thrown in, which is to SFA, and that's it. And historically, the pillars are different, right? It's marketing, sales, and customer service, and commerce. Well, that was historically it wasn't commerce. Later, commerce injected its way in. But if the original three pillars were the three pillars, there was no e-commerce.
Yeah, no, for sure. But
in 1998 or 2001. But that's what I'm saying. So now we're at the point where, okay, 2024 says, okay, the thing in order to figure out what we're doing with CRM in 2024, we have to figure out what CRM is. Okay, so that's why I'm pushing a little bit on it. And because in general, look, my original definition, the very first one I ever had was CRM is the only science of business that attempts to reproduce an art of life, which is how humans interact. That was my original definition. And it ultimately ended up, I'm not going to repeat it because it's long and I don't remember it. But it's systems technology were pretty much the final definition. And it had with outcomes associated to the systems and the technology. That was the final definition. All right, the last one I did, which is 2015. So now we're in 2024. And we have, Keith, you've started with, it's basically an enabler of outcomes.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what, Thomas, either take that and run with it, expand on it, build your own.
Well, I add on to change it. I change it. Okay. So for me, CRM has two layers. One is it's a strategy that deals with everything that is related to customer outcomes. So with the eyes of the customers, or well, viewed at it with the eyes of the customer. The second layer is pragmatically, it's a set of systems that encompass everything from engagement to retirement. Yeah, well, it's very hard.
That's a
retirement
very
of
the
customer, of course.
I like this. Okay. I'm retired. We didn't lose.
I thought you meant my retirement.
When do I retire? That is a wonderful.
How do they do it? How does it work with semi-retirement? I'm really wrestling with that now. Right. Right. Okay, Martin.
I think Thomas gets it. I agree a lot. Like I would say it's an encompassing strategy and execution. And I think that's the idea, is that I think the execution side is where, we tend to fall down. Everything falls apart in execution, right? Yeah. But it's around the entirety of customer interactions with an eye towards improving outcomes. And I think it's enabled by technology, right? I think it's definitely supported by technology, but technology is not everything. If you start with technology before, if CRM to you is a technology decision, you're going to fail, right? So it has to be strategic first, right? You build the strategy, you think about that across, from whatever you're saying, acquisition to retirement, whatever your wonderful words were. And it's really about, it's an eye towards improving outcomes at every at every engagement and interaction and whatever those cute terms you want to use. But I like going all the way back to what you were saying, Paul, because when we think about, like how was business done 100 years ago and how is it done now? It's not that much different. We're just, that's why the idea of like the commerce, it's like, has to be put in there because it's, you talk to someone at a general store and, you smiled, you had a good relationship and you rung up the cash register. Well, now you're virtually smiling, you're having good interactions, you're keeping them happy, and you're using e-commerce to close it, right? So I mean, it's that kind of thing, and if you do that, and if you're utilizing the right technology to inform the cadences and the cycles, you're going to build the relationship longer so that retirement is later, right?
But you know what? You don't even have to smile at me. Amazon, when's the last time Jeff Bezos
I think
smiled
the
at
smile
me?
has turned into like convenience and smile are like what, because these are balanced factors, right? Like sometimes what are people looking for in commoditized transactional relationships? And then what are people looking for in more complex, especially in B2B, right? In B2B, it's like, I want to help. I don't like easy, to Clint's point, easy means different things depending on what your project and what your sales model and what you're selling. What is it? Like if it's the widgetized thing, it's like, get it to me easy, make sure it's shipped fast, and I can just push a button. But if it's, hey, heavy machinery that has lots of like sub pieces and all these other things, and I need to know, will this work with this, and will my replacement parts be on back order, or can you make sure, like whatever that is, right? Helping me and walking me through that's high touch, but you've made it easy. So it's very different to think about that. And how do you enable that with both technology, also process, and just strategy and like training and behavioral stuff of getting the customer focused mindset in your employees, right? That all plays into it. And that's barely any of that was just technology there, right?
All right, Keith.
Martin, you hit on a really important part that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is the training aspect of it, because we can, implement thousands, hundreds, millions of tools, generative AI based, what have you. If you don't have training to go along with that, the whole initiative is going to fail, because ultimately, and we see it right now where, it's obvious when, agents, if you're on a call center, are being fed information and they don't know how to deliver that it becomes a real point of friction there for a lot of interactions. And, that's something that is going to be, I think, a challenge for a lot of organizations who think they can just, I hate to use the analogy, press the easy button of generative AI and think that magically all of their CX issues are going to be taken care of.
Automagically,
All right, guys. So listen, I heard the definition. Everyone seems to be okay with the idea of it being a strategy, but that's not how people perceive it at all. I mean, look, I just went back just for a moment to look at my definitions, to read them actually. And the second one was at my height of optimism, which called it a business philosophy, strategy, and all the other things. And the third one said systems. And even the first one, what I told you, said supported by a system and a technology, right? So, but if you talk to anybody on the street outside of people in our direct universe on if they know what a CRM is, they say, yeah, we're using Salesforce. We're using, and Salesforce intelligently took the stock symbol. So you're a broker, you know it too. So, the thing is, okay, I wanted it to be a strategy, but the people who get hired typically are much more on the IT side than they are on the strategy side. Now, customer-facing strategy is different. It's what I call it now, just basically so that the rest of the world won't argue with me on it, right? So I say, look, customer-facing strategy is part of what your business requires, right? CRM, the systems you use later, are after you figured all that out, you then figure out what systems will support it. I said, but before that, you develop a strategy, and you guys are incorporating the strategy into what the definition of CRM is. All right, my final question, and this is how we close, is how do you, because you guys are analysts with reach, how do you convince the population, or do you try to convince the population that CRM does involve, that CRM part of the definition of CRM is the strategy itself, because I actually give considerably more emphasis to words than we had in the vendor discussion. To me, definitions are everything, because that's how people communicate, right? So I don't think it's just words. I agree with Clint that you have to back it up with outcomes and results, but words are much more meaningful than just words. So how do you convince them, or do you?
Let me start this time again.
All right.
Before we are all silent to each other. So luckily, we do not need to convince the general populace. So we are luckily not politicians. On a business point of view, it works usually via software selection. So because whenever a customer wants a system, they want some processes implemented. And sooner or later, they get that, mostly sooner, by the way, they get that they need to get their requirements straight before they go into looking into a short or long list of possible vendors. Everybody's looking at Salesforce, of course, because it's the gorilla out there. But then it doesn't always fit. And when you come from the requirements angle, then you get closer to the business strategy angle. And that's helping.
Okay.
I would say that's certainly true. I think the other thing that's a critical part of this, again, is, I think someone mentioned it, is being able to speak their language. What I mean by that is talking about domain expertise, understanding, again, what their requirements are for their specific, not only their industry, but the processes that they are trying to enact. That is going to be critical, because again, it's not going to be the same. You could have two companies within the same industry, but depending on who is using the platform, what part of it, those processes may be very different. So I think that's another important part of the conversation.
Okay. Martin, close us out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, everything I do, everything I write about, everything I say, obviously is about the strategy first. You know, even like you take everyone freaking out about AI, and it's like, well, if you don't have a strategy, it's not going to be successful, right? And I think that's one thing where people are going to start learning that pretty quickly, that haphazard use of, I call it, we call it at Annuitas random acts, right? Random acts of sales, random acts of marketing. If you do that stuff and you just think you're just going to add more technology to support it, you're going to fail. So everything I talk about is strategy first. So that's all I've kind of ever been doing. So just keep on keeping on in 24, right? So strategy first.
Okay.
It's always the why. Yeah.
Right. You want to take us out?
Hey, you didn't ask me what my definition of CRM is.
We are listening.
Hasn't changed. It's been the same for a long time. Basically, finding, catching, and keeping your good customers, right? That's still what it is. I couldn't turn it into an acronym because you got FCK customers, and the last thing you want to do is, say that. So, but it's still, it's still relevant today, so I'm sticking with that. But this has been a great way to close off 2 great days of conversations, both with executives and with analysts, influencers.
What a crew, man.
And evangelizers and whatever else you guys are when you're not here with us. But we really appreciate this. Has been great. I mean, the conversations, the content that's going to come out of this has been awesome. So appreciate every one of you. Hope you guys have a great holiday season. Sure, we will see you next year when we're all out there again, going to all sorts of events and things like that. But yeah, this has been great. Awesome.
And watch for a expanded PPN network lineup. 10 shows coming up shortly, finished. And a number of other special projects, which including, I'm going to put us on the spot a little bit, including a live event.
Oh, cool.
An in-person event. So be prepared.
Well, yeah.
Or be scared, or whatever.
Be prepared. It'll be cool.
And Martin, Tara definitely is open for a conversation.
Yeah, I know. Someone connect us somehow. So
we'll do it. Yeah, Brent will do it.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Awesome. All right, guys. So thanks again, and thanks to everybody out was hanging out
Thank
with us.
you.
We had a lot of people
Thanks.
throughout the whole
Bye.
thing.
Thank
So
you. Say hi to Daniel and Patrick, and of course Kevin.
right. And
Bye.
bye to you guys
Bye.
as well.
Oh,
See ya.
Bye.